This is the second week at COP16, and we're here with Meena Raman from the Third World Network. Meena, can you give us a bit of a roundup in what we should be expecting over the next few days?
It's really very hard to tell what we can expect because the first week already had some indication of some problems that we were witnessing. The last 2 days, over the weekend actually, the COP President, Minister Espinosa, actually had an informal stock taking. And ministers have started arriving. So there was a huge concern about what the role of the ministers was going to be. There was some, if you remember last week, there were rumors in the corridor about a secret tax, a secret process, and so on. What Minister Espinosa clarified yesterday, time and time again, she very emphatically said that there is no secret process, there is no secret text, everything is transparent, and the ministers were going to play a facilitative role. They're not going to be drafting any text for the negotiations. They're purely going to be facilitative. This is under the LCA process. And it's not clear to us exactly how this facilitator's role will be played and how they will mingle with the drafting group negotiations which are going on. And then there is also the Kyoto Protocol track, and their parties are meeting under that track. So it's really not clear what the role of the ministers is going to be. So it's still somewhat uncertain. Many of the parties, particularly from the developing world, were still not clear on some of these, the way in which it's going to play out. So I think it's going to be a very exciting week to see how the transparency and the process and the outcome will be generated through an inclusive process and not through a green room process that happened in Copenhagen. I think we are still being haunted by the Copenhagen Accord process.
When do you think we're going to see the first indications of which way this is going to go this week?
Actually, there is already a new text by the chair. It's called the revised conference reference paper she did of the long-term cooperative action. This is Ms. Margaret Mukahana Sangawe from Zimbabwe. She had a first text which she issued on the 24th of November. There's a second one that was given out over the weekend on Saturday afternoon. It's not clear what the text is going to be used as. Many of the parties just had it on Saturday afternoon, and they said they would like to study it over the weekend. I think the key issue is, will that be the way forward in terms of negotiations, or will it be the earlier negotiating texts which were totally done by the parties, which will be the basis of negotiations? I think this is what we're going to be seeing today. And we did an analysis from the Third World Network of the revised document, and we were very concerned that it's still very heavily imbalanced. Many of the proposals by the developing countries for stronger language and stronger proposals seem to have weakened, terribly weakened actually. And we are very concerned that if that is the way the negotiations will go, then developing countries are likely to be unhappy about what the outcome would be. But it's not over yet. I think the negotiations are really only now going to begin. All along, there was a lot of posturing, and you had complaints from negotiators that why are we not really negotiating? And I think this is about time that we really see negotiations begin on very key issues, including on the mitigation. You heard last week about the second commitment period of the Kyoto Protocol, how developing countries are saying that if that does not happen, there's no commitment in the second commitment period, then Cancun will look rather bleak. So ministers are supposed to guide the process, and so it's going to be a very interesting week.
So if we're going to see any progress and let's say a bit of stronger will from the ministers, where do you think we're going to see that? Do you think you're going to see that in Europe? Where do you think we're going to see a bit of leadership here?
Well, we are expecting some leadership from the European Union. I think they've heard it very strongly here, that if there is no outcome, very good outcome in the Kyoto Protocol track, the mitigation outcome as well as the long-term cooperative action outcome is not going to go very far, because it is key that the developed countries take the leadership. And you heard from Japan last week that it will have nothing to do with the Kyoto Protocol. So that is really something that we need to watch out for this week. We understand that there's been a lot of phone calls going on behind the scenes, from other levels, from capitals. So we don't know what's going to happen. So all we can say is that we hope that it will be a good outcome, that Cancun can deliver on the outcomes that we would like to see as civil society organizations for finally addressing the climate change impacts that we're seeing, as well as the strong emission reduction targets that developed countries must put on the table and undertake. Otherwise, we are heading for a doom.
Meena, we don't really know where we're going in terms of the emissions cuts we're going to get, and that's unpredictable at this point. What is the greatest place of progress that we're seeing so far in other places in terms of finance or RED, etc.?
It's still not very clear, because what we are seeing still is that there is some, the hostage taking kind of approach, where the United States and we here is not going to move much on finance if it doesn't get anything on mitigation and transparency, particularly from developing countries. And the developing countries are saying, look, if you're not going to get anything from the Kyoto Protocol track or any effort on the comparable level from the United States, then we are not going to move. So we are still in that logjam and in that deadlock, and unless we unhook that and unplug that, movement is going to be pretty slow.